Arc Raiders had its January or Headwinds update drop today, coming along with a few things that were focal points from its further reveal yesterday. However, along with those bigger picture items, there's actually a lot beneath the surface that makes for solid additions and adjustments to the game's experience that you'll have upon booting the game up for the first time since the update. Today, we're running down what you need to know about the Headwinds update and everything that came along with it. So drop your thoughts, drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community, but for now, let's get into it. So initially described as a matchmaking update, new project, minor map condition, and cosmetic set, it seemed like this was more of an update to tide players over until the February larger content update, right? Well, actually, that wouldn't do it much justice, because despite those being our expectations, much more than that was added into the game. But before we get to the other items, let's discuss how those mentioned additions affect your gameplay. Firstly, the matchmaking condition. Solos versus squads. Personally speaking, when we first saw that mention of matchmaking option in the roadmap, you probably could have given me 100 guesses, and I wouldn't have thought of it being solos versus squads. Mainly because it's just not something you see much discussion of. Lone wolves in this game, no matter how good you are at much more of a disadvantage than many other types of games out there. Perhaps I was out of the loop, but it just didn't seem like there was much of a market for those types of voluntary scenarios outside of perhaps random matchmaking filled to go off and do quests for your own thing or something like that. But it's here no less. But what makes it anything special of note? Firstly, it's only for level 40 and above, though I don't know if this is mentioned or will be something that is reset with the expedition, if it's a one-time threshold that like your first time through at level 40, or if it's a recurring one that every time you hit 40, you regain access to this. But when you toggle to solo versus squads, you're opted into a squads matchmaking queue, but you'll end up receiving a 20% bonus at the end of the round on both successful and defeated endings. So it's certainly a way to garner more risk and reward in those threats if you're looking for a quick rank up, because if you are looking for a scenario of maybe trying to do whatever, you're guaranteed more XP, and if you're in those chill lobbies, while trios seems on average to have more trigger happy players per capita, there are super chill trio lobbies out there that do exist that this could be a complete non-issue depending on how you play the game, and could end up being the freest XP boost imaginable. So not that bad, because whether again you have a thirst for trios blood or you want to avoid combat entirely, not being bound to any specific action and instead just being a modifier for a standard game performance, it's more useful than I expected when it was announced. Will I engage with it a whole ton? Probably not, but it's still something that is beneficial in some capacity. The trophy display project was introduced, where this is a long-term project which now requires players to hunt increasingly dangerous ARC groups to submit their parts for rewards. Players can build a new display case of over 5 different steps, same as the last project with the Flickering Flames event, to then level up and add new items to the display case. Rewards along the way will include things like blueprints, raider tokens, along with full completion granting a new emote, a Jupiter with some ammo, a guitar, and 300,000 coins. So if it is something that this goes towards the expedition in the future, that's a pretty solid boost for completing that project. Interestingly, there is no fixed end date at the moment, and it won't be impacted by any future expedition resets, as with other projects out there, so you do have quite a bit of time to take part in this if you'd like to. Bird City is something that now is a minor map condition for Buried City, where flocks of birds have moved into Buried City, building nests in empty chimneys. There are reports of some of them storing shiny trinkets inside, so you make sure you have to inspect them. This new permanent map condition will be applied to the Buried City map only, which will then cycle in and out of the weekly rotation, which upon checking the timing of each of these events, it's kind of odd because it seems like it's on an 8-hour rotation, once every 8 hours, which as a main focal point of your update is kind of strange you're not seeing it more and more, right? Like, I find that and other things with their rotation to be kind of strange, how we ended up having a hidden bunker trial a couple of weeks ago, where that's again only like twice a day at max you'll see that, and at the most inconvenient times for a lot of locations in the world. So like, I don't quite get that one, but it is a new map condition that comes along with everything. There'll be more bird traps and zip lines present on the map. Raiders can expect more combat in, on, or around the rooftops, including more flying arc, and more players probably going for those new shiny trinkets as described. And the final thing of the marketed things out of that teaser yesterday is the Sandwalker set, that coming as a new skin for 1,300 Raider tokens, coming with an emote, face paint, and the uniform with variants as well. But that's the stuff, again, that was like the marketed things. Again, as mentioned, there's a lot of stuff here that was added that adds to the gravity of this update and makes it a bit more important. A couple of those things includes 2 new types of epic augments were added into the equation here. Mark III augments that you can now take forward and use that do have some interesting properties to them. Both of these only available via blueprints, but the first of which is the Looting Mark III Safekeeper augment, which is a looting augment that trades weight and utility for increased looting potential, aka having a special ability of a safe pocket that allows any item to be stored. Up until this point, you couldn't put some of your more larger items in a safe pocket. Let's say like your weapons and your shields, which is what it boiled down to a lot of the time. So you can now do that, but you trade off the amount of things you can end up taking in your inventory slots and the amount of safe pocket slots from a Mark III perspective, and you make it a more important safe pocket at that point. So if you end up having a really important weapon that you want to keep, or you find a great weapon in a weapon case or off a dead body, that is now also safe if you end up having this available. And plus, another thing that's actually pretty interesting about this is that's the first looting augment that we have that has a heavy shield compatibility with it. So while heavy shields may not be something you normally gravitate to, whether that be because of the damage mitigation, the cost that takes to craft them, or just because you didn't really have a reason to at this point, now you kind of do have something that's a bit more incentivizing here for that. The other new augment we have is the Tactical Mark III Revival, where this comes along with lesser inventory space, 2 safe pockets, only a tier 1 shield capability, but it's one that restores 1 health every 5 seconds. When damage is taken, that effect is paused for 30 seconds. So it's a way to heal yourself in just about every single passive scenario, which is definitely cool. But again, whether or not that outweighs the pros and cons of lessened looting capabilities or the shield potential, that's up to you. Additionally, we ended up seeing 7 new quests added into the game here. 2, I think, are available right up front. The other 5 coming with progression through those sort of quest trees. As the time of recording this, started 1, didn't quite get around to finishing it. It was a 6-parter. So as for the other 5 beyond the 7, don't know those off the top of my head at the moment, but we will have guides for those coming soon. Beyond that, we saw a handful of changes in regards to quality of life and other patch highlights. One of the big things is definitely nice is an open party and adjustment to the squad invite system. Your open party system now has, as the party leader, an option of having your party open so that Embark and other platform friends can just simply join up on your game, which is definitely nice. I know that it would be nice if one of my friends was in raid and I'm waiting around, that I could just join them if they're doing something and I could just join up on them rather than being like, hey man, invite me. And squad invites now allows for other players in your party, other squad mates, to invite others into that party as well as the party leader. So definitely some nice, again, quality of life stuff just for building that party, getting your matchmaking team put together. We also saw an addition of matchmaking delay for stream sniping mitigation. One of those things that isn't like necessarily needed for the vast majority of players that aren't creating content or anything like that, but a nice thing to have to help those that may be affected by it. I'm never going to say no to more options to allow you to control your experience, so that's nice. Gamepad rebinding was also added here, where you can now add new options for that, allowing free binding on most gamepad buttons. Stella Montes' Seed Vault extract fix, that was ironed out, so you no longer have people glitching into the extract to camp you there. They also said they fixed 40 locations on Stella Montes where players were able to frequently get stuck. Not entirely sure if that also applies to some of those locations that are out of bounds and getting out of the map, though in conjunction with the ability for them to not deal damage through the walls, fingers crossed that's just actual now proper mitigation for those types of situations. We saw a mouse smoothing option added with achievement fixes here and there as well. Loot opportunities around maps were also changed, which this is an interesting set of things here. Firstly, the types of containers that can spawn condition-specific blueprints have been lowered during Electromagnetic Storm, Hidden Bunker, and Locked Gate. They raised the chances of finding higher tier weapons in weapon cases and slightly lowered the chances of finding Matriarch and Queen unique parts in their armor pieces to make it a bit harder to get them without destroying them completely. So one of these I like. 2 of these I don't understand the reasoning behind them. Number 1, I do like that they raise the chances of finding higher tier weapons in weapon cases. Definitely nice, makes those more valuable. But firstly, the types of containers that can spawn condition-specific blueprints during Electromagnetic Storm, Hidden Bunker, and Locked Gate being lowered is interesting, because that includes things like your snap hook, your volcano, your bobcat, those all three specific to that electromagnetic storm, hidden bunker, and locked gate events. Electromagnetic storm and the snap hook, I actually truly don't understand that one, because it's one of those things that you can find that in just about any container in an electromagnetic storm. So like, unless they're just trying to relegate it more so to those higher tier loot zones, I don't quite get that. But the hidden bunker and the locked gate specific ones, my only thought process is that they want more people to end up being able to take part in those events, like having it actually specific to inside the hidden bunker or inside the locked gate. Because if that's the case, previously you could end up going to, on Spaceport during hidden bunker, any of the high tier loot locations, on Blue Gate, any of the high tier loot locations, and still have the ability to find that volcano or that bobcat blueprint. Again, haven't had the ability to check this out and see or find one of these blueprints just yet since this update has gone live, but like, that's the only thing that would make sense. But still, I don't think it was too much of a problem to have them accessible outside of and still in the maps, but during those conditions. And then as for the matriarch and queen unique items, I feel like that's going to disincentivize a lot of people from attempting to try and take down the queen or matriarch, just simply because when they know that you have to take it down, or those that do will have a better chance of having those items on them, I feel like you're just going to increase the amount of griefing in those situations. But I don't know. We'll have to wait and see how that all pans out, but preliminary thoughts, not a huge fan of those changes. Then a lot more minor things that you'll see scrolling on screen. To give you the full picture of the patch, there's definitely a lot more, again, than what we may have thought. And speaking of more than what we may have thought, there even were a few things that appear to be changed as of right now, without being mentioned in the patch notes. Some stealth changes we'll go over. Firstly, on a more whimsical note here, there's multiple more kinds of rubber ducks now. Firstly, they actually changed some of the way the polish looks. It's a brighter icon for the regular ones, but I've only found these through a few different matches on the Bird City map condition. But you have the doodly duck and the flashy duck, two different variations of your rubber ducks that do go for more in terms of cash if you decide to sell them, but make for some decent decorations in your raider den if you decide to keep them. After that, looting for one, if you feel like it's slower in some instances, you're not crazy. It actually does appear that actually in most instances, it's slower than pre-patch here compared to just last night. Some of the overall loot reveals at the same time, like the entire duration of X amount of items, but most of the time it is still something that is different. You're still going to see that post-patch now, it's a little bit slower in most of those scenarios. Not all, but in most. So odd that that was a change that was made. Not entirely sure why, not entirely sure if it was intended, maybe it gets reverted back, but as the time of recording this, the looting has actually changed a little bit in that pacing. There also appears to be fire rate reductions to the kettle, burletta, and Venator, so some stuff you should be aware of there. And Raider hatches are now properly animated again. Understandable, because that was definitely a bugged animation, but I will miss that hilarious sort of just sliding right into the tube from the Flickering Flames event and onward. The last thing we'll talk about here is the anti-cheat, because this, again, was something that was updated, where they said a 3-strike progressive ban system is now in the process of being implemented. Bans will progress from 30 days to 60 days, and finally, a permaban for repeat offenders. Now this, I can understand where, from an administrative perspective, you're trying to mitigate any sort of false bans that could then potentially take the game off the rotation for any type of player that, again, could be caught up in these false bans. It's really hard to do that 3 times in a row, whereas if it was a 1-2 punch, maybe it's something that, yeah, you do have some of those people that were acting as real players, just really good getting false reported and slipping through the cracks. However, I feel like that is still something that is such a fringe case scenario that I don't like this system of a 30, 60, and then permaban. I think you should crack down on bad actors as soon as possible. While myself and plenty others may have not come across any sort of cheaters, there are players out there that do have to deal with this on a regular basis. And so I think if you are confident in your anti-cheat, you're confident that there's not any cases where you're getting false bans or anything like that, why? I guess, like, just take them out at that point. Don't let them back into the game. So I guess that's where I differ in my opinion here on this, where I don't agree with this one, but I don't know. Let me know your thoughts. But anyways, that is the update here that we had, a larger and much more substantial update compared to what we maybe thought of when we saw the teaser and reveal for this as of yesterday. They showcased some of the high level stuff, yeah, but there was a lot more actually to it in the depth of this update that now you know about it. So let me know your thoughts down below. Drop a like if you guys enjoyed the video, and make sure to subscribe for more Arc Raiders and other FPS content. I'd love to have you in the community. We have a lot still up on deck that I'm excited to share with you guys, so we'd love to have you in the community. For now though, thanks so much for watching. Minus Espresso. I'll see you later. Take care and peace.